Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone. Today's session is about driving revenue from data. And Vishal has been working on exactly this problem statement, like in different domains, correct?
Yeah.
Different industries. And he has a few case studies to share with us. So Vishal, if you can introduce yourself and your company and how do you do what you do?
Sure. Thank you. Let me quickly share my screen and then we can begin. All right. Thank you everyone for allowing me to take part in this session and sharing with you what what at Top to Black we work on. Let me quickly run you so why we kept this thing as a title, or why we said data to dollar or data to revenue altogether. No, we're not selling your data to make money, but it's just that how you can use uh, data to drive decisions, and that drives the revenue impact for anything that you're working on, right? So, and this is a typical thing that what we have, I have been personally working on over the last 15 years or so. So who am I and why you should listen to me? So I'm Vishal. I run a company called OptiBlack. Over the last 15 years, since 2010, I've been working on different sets of problems with various industries. So I work with over like 100 plus, work with 100 plus companies, and it created an impact about like $350 million. What we have typically worked on is how you can leverage data using different models, different mathematical models, or different data science or all together to create a business impact. And that's the entire premise on what OptiBlack works on. And OptiBlack is a data and AI consulting firm, and this is the exact problem that we work with the companies on. I will give a very quick, simple set on like why a simple data set can be perceived as a different thing. For example, when we work with companies, suppose a simple data point when we say, right, like an account that has come in and it says you have the company sites, right? So let's just say it's a very simple data point. But if you give a context to it, it can mean different thing for different people. So if you give it to sales, they would then prioritize which companies to target. If you give it to a product manager, they would target it differently and create the product differently. If you give it to a support team, they would target it differently. So what you would see is like a simple data point can be perceived when added a little context to it, can be perceived in a different value altogether, right? So, and that is the kind of problems that we work with at OptiBlack. We are an AI and consulting, data and AI consulting firm, and this is exactly what we do when we work with companies. So, in the next 20 minutes or so, this is what I want to share with you guys. I want to share 3 case studies, and I want to give you the framework that how we do it, and I would also give the tools that you have by the end of it. And then I will give it to Eshet, and Eshet will share with you. So you can also follow the entire process onto the same, right? So this is what I want to do in the next 20 minutes. And if we have time and if you have any questions, we will run by them. Shall we begin?
Yeah.
All right.
If people have any questions in the middle also, then we can take it in the
Go
middle.
ahead.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So let me take one by one, and then you could see the story and why we kept this as a title altogether. Right. Let me first share the first case study, and the first is the story of housing.com. So I used to work at housing.com, and one of the problem that we faced at that time in 2014 was it used to get a lot of duplicate properties, right? So if you know housing.com and if you have ever searched for a rent or a buy option, you would see that I have uh, if you search if you search a property in a certain locality, there were a lot of duplicate properties altogether. That's what used to happen in 2014. So I was given this problem set, like how can we solve this altogether? The problem was the operation collection used to have to happen, go from 1,000 per day to 10,000 per day. Like it was scaling. And if it is only collecting duplicate properties, then a lot of business degradation happens, not only from the user experience perspective, but you spend a lot of time collecting an duplicate property altogether, right? Now, why it was such a challenging problem? Because this is what used to happen on the ground, right? So you have to understand the situation on the ground. What people in on the ground used to do it, they were lazy. So what they used to do it, they used to collect one property, change bedroom 1 to bedroom 2, and upload it again the same and say like, okay, it's a different property, right? So the same person would change a little bit of data point and say it's a different property. And that's where housing was losing a lot of money internally. How we solved this problem uh, was very creative thinking, is by comparing the kitchen images. And I would come to a point like we developed an image matching algorithm for kitchen. And I would tell why specifically kitchen, right? So if it's always the lady of the house who decides like how the kitchen is kept, right? So even if you have like a family living on the 7th floor and a family living on the 8th floor, even though the kitchen structure is same, but the how they've arranged the kitchen is actually different. This is what you need to understand and know, is that is this the same property that we already have, or is this certain a different property all to the same? And that's where this image, we developed an ML-based image matching algorithm that helped us identify whether this was the same property or on the same locality under the same circumstances, or was it something else? When we did that, we found like 10% of the properties on listed on housing.com were actually duplicate. We got them removed. And this is still being used right now at housing.com. Whenever a new property gets uploaded, this algorithm is still being used to understand whether it's a duplicate property that they already have. And if nowadays it has become so smart that if it identifies that it's a duplicate property, it does not even allow you to upload the same. So that's the story number one, that it took a little bit of creative thinking and the data and to come up with a solution of solving this problem of duplicate properties. And it was not just comparing like just a location point or a random text or an address, because that can be easily cheated. So we had to come up with a different model to solve this problem altogether. Now, I would like to share the next case study, which we did, the problem set that we did with the Indian Railways.
Let's wait if there are any questions.
Sure. All right.
Anyone?
Yeah, hi,
Yeah.
Vishal. I have a
Hi,
question
come
about,
on.
yeah, I had a
Yes.
question about the kitchen thing. So what
Yeah.
if it's an apartment, right? Let's say it's one apartment structure, one apartment building, right? Won't the
Yeah.
kitchens, all the kitchens be same because they're all built in the same way? So how would you?
Correct. So it's a fair question, but it's if it's an under construction property, then one listing, and if you say the inventory is 10, it's the same thing altogether, right? So what we were not booking on the inventory part of it. What was happening is the same property was being collected and being sent as a duplicate like say it as a different property altogether. So your case would come when it's an under construction building, and it will always look the same because there is nothing in it. That's why. Does that answer your question?
Okay, no, I meant when like I didn't mean under construction. I just meant, when you're renting it out, right? When multiple people are like
Correct.
renting it. Okay.
Right. So if you already have that property, right? So housing
Yeah.
used to make it available again.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So the business problem was the duplicate property should not come in, right? So if you already have that property, it will go away in the rent. Once it is available back in the rent, it will come back live again. But it should not happen that just because 3, 4 brokers have got it listed, and if you search for it, they all give the same property as a different listing, right? So we were
Got it. Okay.
fighting against that thing. It was not against like making it available again all the time. So
Okay, got it. Yeah,
yeah,
understood.
okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll come to the general questions at the end, but for now, any questions about this case study? Okay, we can move on.
All right. Thank you, guys. The next one is a very interesting one, the one with the Indian Railways. So, Indian Railways earn money not by selling us tickets. They actually earn money for their B2B side of business. So one of their business is actually transferring oil from our refineries like Jamnagar refinery and all other refineries to the entire part of India. And they get paid for providing this logistics service. Now, the problem set that Indian Railways came up with, there are 200 plus trains that they have, and they have to allocate them every day, right? So it might look very simple problem statement, but it's very complex in the part because there are inherent restrictions on it, right? Moving a train is not as simple as driving a car because once it starts moving in a different direction, you can't just make a U-turn and come back. And once it has moved in a certain refinery or altogether, again, you can't have it back. So you always have to measure and have a trade-off between the SLAs, like as soon as the request comes in from the refinery across India, like across the coastal regions of India, that yes, give us the train to transfer it to the different parts of India. You have to like not only provide that train in the fastest manner, and also deliver it in the fastest manner and then be back available again. So it was a similar kind of problem like having an Uber of petrochemical trains altogether. So that's exactly what we built. Now, why this challenge occurs in the first place for them, right? So there are 200 trains and they're 5 to 6 hours every day, right? So the people team who is responsible for planning and everything, their 5 to 6 hours used to go into just coming up with decision every day because they have to take this decision every day. So just imagine your entire half a day is just being spent on just deciding where it to move. So that's when they came and we started working with the petroleum director in the 2013 or so. And then we talked about like how can we solve this problem using mathematically and using algorithms altogether. That's exactly what we did. We understood the kind of constraints that the system has. There are inherent constraints like I don't know if how much you know about petroleum and all, but there is like a white petrol and there is a dark petrol. So white petrol is basically used in airlines, and dark petrol that we see is what we use in the cars, right? So, and the another set of constraints is that these cannot be mixed, otherwise it will uh, form a fuel contamination altogether, right? So a white train cannot be used for the black oil or similarly vice versa. So there are a lot of constraints that they have to go through. The solution came into the part of building an ML model first to predict like where the demand is going to come next, number one, based on the historical data and based on the seasonality and based on the inputs that they receive from the refinery, right? So when is the next batch is about to come in? So we had to come up with first an prediction model, and then we had to come up with an research operation like linear programming model that solves for resource allocation altogether. Solving these two things together helped us allocating this entire 200 plus streams, and we used to get the answers delivered in under like 10-15 seconds all to the same. So we went from the task that took 5 to 6 hours daily to be done in under like 5 to 10 minutes all to the same, which saved a lot of time, but it also gave them the leverage of using those time into much more better activities and improving their SLAs altogether. This solution is still being used since it was deployed in 2014, and it is still being used by Indian Railways internally to solve this. So this is how we used simple problem, even though the problem statement is very simple, but we had to like use a lot of data science to understand how can we make the correct business decisions, and this impacts their revenue, right? So if they don't deliver on time, they don't get paid on time. If they don't get paid on time and they don't have the machines available, like resources available, their entire revenue gets impacted. So there is a direct impact on where to move the train to how much revenue that they earn. So it's basically like an Uber. If you are at the right place at the right time, you get more trips. If you are not there, you get less number of trips. So I think so. If you compare it with the Uber model, you will be able to make that decision much more better. So that's how we solved for the Indian Railways. And I would take a pause if there are any questions or discussions that you want to do on this part. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Vishal. This is Vamsi here.
Hi,
I have a
Vamsi.
question. So
Yes.
you're trying to plan the schedule, right? It's an optimizer of
Correct.
planning the
Yes.
resources well.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. It's a resource allocation and prediction model.
Acha. If I may know the algorithm used in ML, which kind of algorithm was used? Is it regression or classification?
I am really sorry, I don't remember that exact algorithm because it was a little time back ago. But sorry, I don't remember, but it was more on the prediction part of it, right? So what's the probability of getting an order from this place altogether? So yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
How do you estimate the revenue generated from this solution? How do you estimate the impact?
Okay, let's take a very simple thing, right? So you might have come across like people on LinkedIn just ask their drivers, "Aaj kitna trip kiya?" Right? So it's a very simple question, right? That an Uber driver faces. Suppose they do 5 trips, they earn X amount of money. Suppose they do 10 trips, they earn 2X that money, right? So what here is the direct linkage between how many trips were they able to do before and then how many trips they are able to do after, number one. So if the number of trips have increased, there's a direct revenue impact. So let's understand the business process, right? So refinery says transfer this from Bombay to Jharkhand, for example, right? Now the train has to move from Bombay refinery to all the way to Jharkhand. That's it. Then what needs to happen is the batch would keep on generating as and when they have. If they have more back orders, they have to fulfill them. So suppose if they were doing only 200 trips or 500 trips in a month, example, right? With this algorithm, if they're able to do 600 trips, they're able to fulfill more. They're able to fulfill more demand for it. Number one. Number two, they're able to reach those places at the right time. So earlier they might used to wait for like 2 days for the train to come in, right? Now they're only waiting for a half a day for the train to come in. So that's the faster in supply chain that you call as the inventory replenishment. So there's a faster way where they get it delivered. So that way, if the number of trips increase because of this algorithm, the revenue increase altogether.
How do you separate other factors? Like how do you know that this is the impact of my data science solution? Because there could be other factors at the same time, right?
Correct. There can be. But assuming other factors are almost constant, that the refinery has not shut down, number one, the refinery production uh, has remained constant. If you limit to those set of things, if you're able to see like the number of trips have increased, you would be able to say that, okay, there's an impact on this. And they reached the number one. Number two is SLA, right? So did they reach the place on time? So earlier you can say like what was the wait time, and now what is the wait time altogether with the same 200 number of trains, right? So if you have not increased that part, then you can say like, okay, it earlier the refineries used to wait for 3 days, now they wait for 1 day. So your SLA has improved altogether.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone?
All right.
We can move on. Yeah.
Okay. Third one is we solved it for, I don't know how many have heard of called McKinsey. So McKinsey is again a consulting firm. They hired us to solve this problem. Now, this was again in a again, in a related train environment, like infrastructure altogether, there was an upcoming infrastructure project. I cannot take the name, unfortunately, but nowadays you are hearing between Ahmedabad and Bombay. So that's a simple link between that. So there was an entire infrastructure project that was coming up. And the problem that they say to us is like, how can we do the resource allocation much more better? Because every transportation decision has an monetary impact. Every, like, where the resources are being collected from for that infrastructure, it has to happen. So, sorry, I was not clear, but let me go into a little bit more detail. It's basically a construction thing that is happening. And what is happening is an entire railway route has to be laid down. Now, when you lay down an entire new railway route, what needs to happen is you have to collect raw materials from various different locations. You have to get them transported. You have to produce them something on the at that time altogether, like near where the construction act needs to happen. You have to do some processing, and then you have to lay down the railway track. So that's the process. There is something called quarry. Quarry is where you get the raw materials of coal and all that together, and and limestone and everything that is used to lay down the entire railway tracks, right? So the raw materials used to come from a place. They have to be transported at a certain place. They have to be laid down and do the production. And then they have to be created at this certain latitude and longitude. Now, there are multiple decisions that needs to happen. Number one, which quarry to get the material from. Number two, which transportation to use. Number three, how much to produce. Number four, where to lay it down, right? So the entire, there are four kinds of decisions that needs to be made and four kinds of optimizations that need to be done to come up with the entire cost saving that you can do in the resource allocation. Now, how we solved this problem was we divided the entire railway route of like 130 kilometers or 200 odd kilometers into small chunks of like 500 meters. And then we came to a decision of like, for each and every 500 meters, where will the material would come from? Number one. Number two, which transportation will do it? Number three, where exactly would it be produced? And number four, and where it would be laid down. So we divided that entire railway track into like small chunks of pieces, and we optimize it for each and every piece. And then we got the combined savings from all of it. And that's the solution that we developed, which we internally called as OptiNet. And this led to the actual savings. So they say it like it was about 150 crores of the entire project, infrastructure project. They took the budget of, and we got the savings of like 10 crores just by taking the decisions of where to move which part altogether, right? So just by doing these decisions, we were able to solve this entire problem. And not only that, we were able to directly see like how much efforts were saved into the entire project all to the same. So we got a savings of 10 crores. Not only that, it also gave them a project plan, like where to lay down what all together. And we were able to do this in about like two months or so, right? So that's how we saw and solved this problem. This was one of the most complex one because you had to come up with a different way of thinking in just laying down the railway track altogether. And then you have to solve multiple problems at each and every step to come up with the problem, come up with the solution all to the same. I know this could be a little bit difficult if some people are not aware of what we're talking about, but I will take a pause and see if you have any questions, or then we can dive deeper into the same. Yeah.
So people hire McKinsey as consultants and they hire you as consultants.
So it was a very funny story. McKinsey was looking for for a talent like us, and then they said I did something for Indian Railways. So because of the previous work that I did for Indian Railways, they reached out to me and said, this is the exact kind of problem that we want to solve because you have done this earlier. Solve this. But yeah, that's a funny story. They hired me to do it.
Cool. Any questions, anyone?
I mean, could you give a very vague example, Vishal, of one instance where you saved you're talking about resource allocation every 500 meters, right? So one instance where you saved money, I mean, where you had to move one, let's say.
Yeah. Yes, there were two main areas where we saved a lot of money, right? So number one was from where the raw material needs to be sourced from. That was number one, because it used to happen at the entire stretch of it. It has to be done in certain areas. So we actually used a lot of Google route mapping algorithms, route optimization to come up with like which source to take the raw material from, and second, which transportation vendor to select, right? We collected like a lot of data was actually collected with the help of McKinsey, but we actually went down to the problem set of like there are 3-4 vendors, and this is the rate that they were giving at different areas and different kilometer wise. So how logistics work, if you know, is they give you rate on a certain set of kilometers. Like if you hire us for X amount of kilometers, we will charge this much per kilometer, right? So, and they have like a different rate card altogether. So we took all of that data, fed it into develop that model, a linear programming model, solve those constraints, and then saw the two major areas where we got the maximum savings was decisions on where to source material and which vendor to select for this thing. And but they both have to like work in together. So yeah, that was more of a challenge. Does that answer your question, or was it something else that you were looking for?
No, that answered my question. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right.
I actually worked on a similar problem back in 2020. It was again like a version of a traveling salesman problem. So it was about optimizing the route of. So I worked at Piramal that time. Piramal,
Okay.
the Piramal group, and it was
Yes.
What is that? The medicines.
Yes.
Piramal Pharma. So
Yes.
The problem statement was about what route should the salesperson take
Yes.
when he visits different medical shops to take the orders.
Yeah.
So I solved it like I first used clustering and then used the Google Maps API for route optimization.
Yeah. In operations research,
I think I used the Open Street Maps.
OpenStreet.
The open source one. Yeah.
Right. In operations research, we call it like as an NP hard problem because you don't have defined this is the most optimal solution. You can never say that. So you will always use heuristics and prediction algorithms to come up with a model or the same. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? I have written down a lot of questions for you on behalf of these people, and these are generic questions, not related to this problem statement. Anyone? Okay, cool. I think one thing you have written here also the impact column, right? There's a lot to learn from your impact columns from all the 3 use cases. This is, I think, this is the place where people struggle a lot. How do they estimate the impact of their work, right?
Yeah.
In general, like in data science, everyone would be struggling with this, I assume.
Yes.
Unless they're working on something that can be quantified very easily. So I think even in people's resumes, people always struggle in writing these numbers. How do they estimate the impact of their, like if they built even a chatbot or they like whatever, they did some analysis. So like estimating that impact, right? This is something we learn from that.
Thank you.
How do you think, like, do you have any tips of like how do you estimate the impact? Yeah.
And that's where the next part comes in, right? So it's a very what you said, Ashit, is a very common set of problem, and I will cover it like what you guys can do to bring that sort of understanding or start moving in that direction, right? So like understanding what's the impact the work that you're doing altogether. Right. So can I move ahead?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Right. So this is the next part. I've shared the 3 case studies that we worked on or all together. But next, what I wanted to do is, this is a very common set of problem. What I should say, that in data science, people tend to understand like, oh, I developed this model, I developed that model, but maybe my upbringing was always like how you translate that into a business outcome. And the reason was something that what happened with me in 2010, right? So this was the time when I was working as a software engineer, and I was like I solved a technical problem and then I was presenting it to everyone in the team all together. And there were like 5-10 people in the conference room looking at the solution and all together, and then they were talking about like, okay, we solved this and all together. But there was also one person who was like a very senior delivery manager who was also present in the call. In that call, he said to me one thing which I still remember, and that actually helped me develop that mindset, which I want to share with you, right? So that was the very first time he brought me the concept of left brain and the right brain. So every one of us is blessed with a left brain and the right brain. As data scientists, software engineers, we are much more on the left side of it, right? Analytical thinking, language, mathematics, detail-oriented, sequential processing. That's what we learn of. But then he said the next line, and he said like, Vishal, you should always think of the right brain, because the next 2 decades are going to define how the right brain guys are going to rule the world, and not the left brain guys, right? So, and that was a very important statement that he made. What he was actually trying to tell me is like, you have to come out of models and you have to come out and understand like what's the emotion behind certain decisions, and what is the emotion behind certain things, and how do they happen, right? So how do you deal with people? And that's where the right part of it comes into the picture. Now, let me simple take a McKinsey example, right? So we solved that. On the paper, it was still 10 crores. Okay. But it was actually a lot of working with other people and understanding and working with like what is the problem that they're facing on day to day, that actually helped us get that sort of impact, right? So you don't have to solve on the sheet or on the model. You have to actually understand what's happening beneath the surface, and that is causing a lot of decision making altogether. And that's where the concept of left brain and the right brain also comes to the picture. What I'm trying to tell you today is you are good at left brain. No one, whatever who you are, you understand left brain very well. Today, maybe start thinking about how do you deal with emotions. And I will tell you the framework that we used, right? So, and then you can try to implement it day to day on your basis and come up with the impact for yourself or some work that you have done onto the same, right? This is the in Optiblack, we follow something called as data to dollar framework. The underlying principle is there is something in between, right? So before you take data to revenue impact, there is something in between I've written, which is called decisions. Now, pick up any project that you have worked on and try to understand who your stakeholders are. Number one. Number two, try to understand what sort of decisions that they want to make, which will either save money or increase revenue. Number one. If you are able to identify those decisions, you will be able to understand how your data should behave to drive those decisions. So data will be used to drive those decisions. The decisions will actually lead to the revenue impact. So let me go back to the Indian Railways part when Eshat asked, like, how do you know the impact of it, right? Because if you want to know the impact of it, you have to understand, when does Indian Railways earn money? The Indian Railways money when it completes a trip. So if, in a simple sense, if you do more trips, you are able to do earn more revenue. If you're able to reach something much more faster, you're able to do more trips. If you're able to do more trips, you can fulfill more orders. It's a very simple thing, and that's where the question comes in. So had it been only related to model, I would have said it saved me X amount of time. I did this model, I did this computation, I would have left it over there. But you have to change that approach and ask yourself, whatever the data and model that I'm doing, what sort of decisions can be taken on the top of it? And can these decisions directly impact that revenue? And if you follow this principle, this is the step-by-step approach that we internally do, right? So this is the 5 step that we follow with when we work with clients, right? The first thing that we always do before we even start taking up a new project altogether is first we try to identify who the stakeholders are. Now, this is again very important to understand who the stakeholders. Now, let me help you understand the stakeholders. What do we mean by that? So if you think of, I'm going to give a different example, which you will see like out of the stake, what do we mean by stakeholders? So this is about a shampoo company, right? There was the CEO of a shampoo company asked their sales team to help them understand like who are our stakeholders. Now, normally for a shampoo company, the stakeholders, they say the normal people, right? Like customers who are using it, the transporters who are providing it, the retail companies who are providing that place and everything to do it. But they went a little bit down further to understand who also the stakeholders. One of the stakeholders, one of the very fun, like impacting stakeholders that they came up with was the people who are responsible for cleaning the drains are also a stakeholders, right? So because if you do a packaging in a certain sense, they say it like it can impact like how the drainage system works altogether. Now, that's a very different level of thinking that is required. But the question that I'm trying to push you towards is when you start a project or when you want to understand, always ask whose work is going to get impacted because of this thing. And that's your stakeholder. Second, work with them to identify what sort of decisions will they be able to take if you provide a certain set of data. And that's where your impact underlying principle would come into the picture. And then you can do all your left brain thinking of data gaps, pipelines, data infrastructure. You can do the benchmarking. You can, and then you come up with the analysis or identifying the opportunity. But if you do the first part right, like try doing it today. If you're doing work somewhere, if you're doing any project altogether, if you're freelancing, if you're working somewhere or anything, tomorrow, Monday onwards, you're starting on a certain new project or you're getting something, try to go a little bit level deeper to understand where it will fall and why are we doing this. If you get that part right, the more questions you ask over there, you will be able to understand like how the data needs to come in. Now, this is exactly where companies miss on like a lot of data teams miss on getting this part right. And that is why they always feel like there is no impact. But if I tell you, for a CXO, data is the most critical part of it. So they always want their data teams to come up with a model that solves their business problem all to the same. And if you start showing that inclination, you will start seeing like people will involve you more and more and give you a different set of problems altogether. So that's coming from my own personal experience all to the same. That's the framework that we follow. Number one, this is the basic set of sheets that we use internally to do it. And I have the sheet in front of me. And there's also link available. I will give it to you guys so you can try to understand that part. I'm going to give a very example of an e-commerce company because that's easier for to understand because every one of us have done a shopping in certain manner, but then what if you see over here, right? So if you see on the yellow part, this is the current figures of a company, of an e-commerce company. Now, for an example, now look at the benchmark, the current figures that you do. Now, before you start working, right, developing or any solution altogether, what we do first is which metric should be first improved, right? So if I improve a certain metric by a certain percentage, I will get certain amount of direct revenue impact. And that's the model that you have to come up with the problem that you're solving, right? So each and every problem that you're doing, try to see data to decision, decision to revenue. And then you will be able to see like how your impact is automatically created in whatever work that you're doing. How we do this is suppose I have laid down this entire part for an e-commerce company that we work with. On the left side, you would see an impact tracker altogether, right? And this is what we usually fill. We try to fill before we do that, right? So we say what is the kind of experiment or anything that we are doing or the model that we're developing. Let me bring this up so that I think so that will impact you. That will be helpful. Where in the funnel, if you understand funnels, like whether it's for customer acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, or referral, which category will it solve for? And then what we do is, what is the metric that it would change? And whether it would impact the number of revenue, whether it would impact the cost, or whether it would impact the users. So we try to fill this item first, and then we see like, okay, if we do this thing, this is direct revenue or a cost impact that I can bring in. Now, let me try to see if we can do it for like the 3 case studies that we did, right? So let's take the example of the Indian Railways one. If I get that decision much more better, I can directly say like, okay, I used to fill 500 orders in a month. Now I do 600 orders in a month. Those extra 100 orders, my revenue increased. That's number one. For the McKinsey one, there's a direct impact of like, okay, if I select these kind of decisions, like if I select vendor A versus vendor B for a certain part of the track, I save this much amount of money, right? So there's again a direct impact. Housing also, housing used to spend money on every property that is collected. So there's an internal cost that is involved. So if they're not collecting a duplicate property, they don't have to spend anything on it. So that's a direct cost saving that they have. All they have to know is like how many duplicate properties are being collected in a month, and they can directly know the revenue impact cost impact that it created, right? So does this make sense? Like, are you able to understand like how you can change a little bit to come up with a framework where you say, okay, this is how I know which impact was it created.
Any questions about this anymore? Impact estimation? Okay.
All right. Okay. So I will give this to you. The floor is now open for any questions. This is what I wanted to share with you, and this is exactly what we do internally and how we work with the companies. I think so. There's something on the chat there. Yes, I will share the link for the sheet. I will give it to Eshit, and Eshit will share it with all of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any question before I ask my question?
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yes, Kuber.
Is this more from the product side of view, or like from the business side of view, or like is there any kind of role that looks into more of these? Because usually data scientists get business problem, the revenue impact or something like that. Those things are already taken care of, and that's when we get the problem, right? We get, okay, we want to improve this, but we don't get, okay, from this we will have this impact unless we ask. And sometimes even we ask, we don't get very concrete answers, right? So
yeah,
what kind of person solves these kind of problem, or like take care of this part of the problem?
Right. See, if there is no designated role, but I will tell you one thing. Any data person who starts understanding this thing will obviously move much more faster in their career and whatever journey that they are doing, either entrepreneur journey or anything altogether, or even if they also want to go into the data science part of it, right? The question is not about who does this or do it. The question is about, can you do it to understand the impact that you're creating, right? Number one. Number two, yes, it's a fair thing that sometimes when a data scientist person asks, they don't know whether what is creating an impact. But maybe that is why I say you can create this model on your own. Like, you don't have to always depend on someone else. You have all the data. So if you the point that I'm trying to make is, try to see where does the business lose money and earn money. And if you just follow the money path, you will be able to know, like, if this decision gets impacted or get changed, this model will impact this much revenue. Okay, let me give another example that we are working on. So an airline is working, like in a company like Make My Trip is working with us to do a price hedging algorithm model development, right? As simple as that. What they're going to give an option is, they want to develop a data science problem set, is to predict the price in which they customer on their website can lock a price altogether. Now it might seem a simple set of problem, but it involves a lot of prediction. There's a lot of data science around it, but you can directly see the impact of it, right? You can directly understand, if you just take out the kind of bookings that has happened and the kind of extra money that that we paid to the airline. So if you know these two numbers, you can directly see the impact of how many, whether you lost money or whether you gained money altogether from the model that you developed. Does that answer your question, Kupe? Because it's not about one role that will do it. It's about how data science team can know more to create the impact that they're already creating. It's just that you have not put them into the figures altogether.
Yeah, sure. That was helpful.
I think
Okay.
once you start doing this, I think that's how you can be a successful data team.
Yes.
Even like my manager from my last organization, he had to actually do all this like impact estimation, like what would be the impact of this project. So whether like so that they can choose whether to pick this project or not. Because if you end up picking low impact projects, that's I think a recipe to get laid off soon, right? So because like soon, like maybe a year later, people would figure out, okay, this team isn't really making any impact. So those people would be the first one to be laid off.
Yeah, especially in the current times. But what I have learned, Eshit, Ravi, Vamsi, Kumar, and Kuber, is that data is actually your superpower. Because every CXO out there wants to know what's happening, right? And the only way they can know what's happening is once they have the data. So they need the data to make decisions, and you are at the superpower of it. All you have to change is where it is creating that impact altogether. So yeah.
Hmm. Hi, Vishal.
Yeah.
Hi, Ravi.
So thank you for giving us the valuable information. So I have one
Thank you.
question.
Sure.
So whenever you are saying that you are creating a model or generating a model who can do the
Yeah.
prediction part or any other part, so I wanted to get a technical detail of it, like how
Right.
to create a model. So let's say in a now times in the AI era, we can create the model, but you were doing this from like a 2010. So
Yes.
how you guys are doing the prediction part and how to use those algorithms, because I didn't know about those algorithms in details. But if I know about those algorithms like prediction part and all, how I can create the model of it and how I can use that with the data.
Right. So the study that I did at IIT Bombay was something called operations research. And one of the operations research under that, you learn something called linear programming.
Okay.
Linear programming is basically minimizing cost, maximizing revenue. You can do minimum and maximum sort of mathematical models with it. So you can look more about linear programming. That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of prediction algorithms. I don't want to get into those technicals and that thing right now. The things have evolved. If you look at GitHub, Kaggle, and others, you will find those prediction model algorithms. What at that time it was linear programming that I used. Linear programming works on a very mathematical sense of it, right? So you have to give it constraints. For example, a variable cannot, for example, cost is associated with the kilometers that a cab is traveling, right? Number one. So if I tell this cab to run only X amount of kilometers, it charges me Y kilometer per hour, and that's how I know the cost. Now you have to develop these constraints in a mathematical model, and then there are optimizers and Gurobi optimization or open optimizers that are available, which solve it for you, and they solve it with basis on the either minimizing or maximizing a certain formula, which is again a mathematical formula where some part is variable and some part is fixed. So it's a sum product of that part. So in the case that I had shared earlier, it's what it is basically doing is it's minimizing the cost that is required for the train to travel, number one, while it's also maximizing the number of trips that they can do at this in an year altogether, right? So you would see minimum and maximization problems, and this is where the resource allocation and they are basically minimum maximizer problems. So there's an entire field called linear programming, which you can look at, which we studied for like exactly 2 years. So it can take some time, but this is a kind of study that is used for solving these set of problems, number one, and they are used everywhere. Supply chain, airlines, Indian Railways, everywhere you would any sort of decisions that needs to be made, you would see linear programming, prediction algorithms coming in. Prediction algorithm ML was present at that time, right? So ML, machine learning, was still there in 2013, 2014. So we used basic prediction models to come up with what is the percentage that we will get the order from this area, and then we started moving the train to that direction. Does that answer your question, Ravi?
Yeah, I guess yes. Thank
Okay.
you so
All
much.
right. Okay.
So basically, linear optimization is like a sister field of machine learning.
Yes.
Whenever you would do a course on machine learning, you would probably end up hearing something about operations research.
Yes.
And I think most business problems are optimization problems only. Like you have to
Yes.
minimize or maximize something, right? And there are algorithms to do that. So basically you have some equation. So maybe your equation can be as simple as profit equals revenue minus cost.
Yeah.
You want to maximize profit, but also keeping some constraints in mind. So because if you want to maximize profit, you can either increase revenue or decrease cost. But again, revenue will have some more variables into it. Cost will have some variables into it. And so like basically figuring out what is the optimal value of each variable, considering the constraints and maximizing a particular quantity. So yeah, so definitely like everyone read about this. And there's one guy on LinkedIn, there's this guy Adam DeJans Jr. If people have seen his LinkedIn post. So he's like hardcore into linear programming. He can't stop talking about it. Like he just wants to replace all of ML with linear programming.
Difficult, but yeah. Very difficult.
Can you put a name in a chat, Adam?
Yeah. I think Sudha had a question. Sudha?
Yeah, hi Vishal. So
Hi, Sudha.
yeah, I'm sorry if this is repetitive or something, but when you mentioned this, right, who are our stakeholders, that's very, very important.
Correct.
So over there, what I understood is like these stakeholders, people whose work is going to get impacted. That's the only thing I have written. Is there anything more? Could you summarize that maybe with an example of something?
No, you got the right thing. So ask yourself whose work is going to get impacted and how, right? So whose work and how. based on whatever you're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, you said something about data there. So how is the work getting impacted? And then something about data there. I think I missed that. So that's what I was expecting.
Maybe I was coming to the point like how they are going to leverage whatever you're doing to take certain set of decisions.
Okay.
Okay. But what you got is absolutely right. Like ask yourself if you're developing a recommendation engine, if you're developing any other ML model or any other data science model, even if you're doing a basic Excel sheet analysis, right? So ask yourself who is going to use this, how they're going to use it, and what sort of decisions that they want to take. If you just ask these questions, you will have a different sort of pattern thinking into like what data should I show? What is the data story that can be created, right? So suppose you get a suppose you're asked to do the analysis on like uh, let's say you are given an SQL query that you have to keep on writing and present an analysis on where is the suppose marketing mix model, right? So marketing mix model, like where is company spending money on marketing and how it is impacted. But now what the next thing that you can do is uh, understand like what business decisions that they want to take from this thing. Are they looking to optimize campaigns? Are they looking to understand which are the top campaigns that are performing? Are they looking to understand like which campaigns are not performing? Then you will have a different set of SQL queries that you would write or different data sets that you would use to come up with those decisions. But the more you ask these questions, like who is going to get impacted and how, you will start understanding who's a stakeholder and what is the impact that you can create on through your work onto their role altogether. So
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Now, welcome, Devi.
So how much have you seen like people hiring consultants just to uh, satisfy their biases,
That's a
or
people
just to
hiring
have
consultant.
just to have a scapegoat to blame if the decision goes wrong?
It's yeah, I think so. It's one of the things that the people like hire from and you might have heard like that's why the people hire big fours and everything,
Yeah.
but to do scapegoats. But it's like a very small percentage, right? So the reason why these consultants and everyone is hired is because they want to bring someone who has done this before and in the bigger companies the problem is not that that they don't have data or anything. The problem is the alignment, right? So there are different departments, they don't talk to each other very much because they are set in their ways. They know what to do. They have their own processes. As in the company grows, this thing becomes much more. They are hired to bring this part. Yes, there could be some biases, but that bias is towards मुझे अपना बोर्ड को बताना है कि ये मुझे compete करना है in the next thing. That's the bias, not the bias कि मुझे लगता है यही सही होना चाहिए. But obviously good people, that's why they get sometimes they hire two consulting firms just to pitch them with one another and say like, okay, which one is creating. So there could be two parties and they could say, I'm going to hire my own independent firm and then going to hire my own independent consultant. But most of the times these biases are towards to save their own careers altogether and
Yeah.
not just to prove कि यार तुम्हारा data गलत है or altogether. But yeah, that's what I have seen. So, yeah.
Okay. Also, do you see companies pushing for Gen AI these days, even if the
Yes.
use case does not need Gen AI?
What I'm seeing is companies want to try out Gen AI because there is a heavy inclination. And then the problem that we're seeing is they don't know which is the first use case to solve. So this is the gap that they first have to do. Sometimes it's very simple as creating an HR internal bot using Gen AI to answer the queries of 500 plus employees to reduce the HR time. So it can be as simple as that. But that is why we have the impact tracker, right? So you can have multiple ideas, but you can understand first to like which one which one would make a better impact, and then use that part. So what we are seeing right now is, I want to try what is GenAI, right? I want to get a taste of it. I don't know whether I will use it, but I want to get a POC or a proof of concept around the same. So yeah, that's the trend that we are seeing.
Okay. And so if you can recall, maybe in the last 1 year, whatever projects you have done, how many, like what percentage of those were GenAI projects?
We not that very heavy on GenAI yet. So I would say 4 or 5 were of them on GenAI. Rest of them were largely on percentage. I would say 5-10%. Majority
5%.
of them, 5-10%. Because see, what is also happening is that people, they are going to chatbot creation teams or going to these kind of teams. What we have done is we have created GenAI SaaS products for companies, right? So companies who want to develop SaaS products with AI in between. So like AI for CFOs, AI for media companies, creating SaaS for this part. So this is where OptiBlack has done majority of the work, and not in like solving a one particular automation use case for those companies altogether. So that's why our GenAI projects are different from those ones altogether.
So how many people here are interested in entering data consulting? Like how many of you want to be a data consultant, or you want to try it out, maybe as a freelancer?
I can also interested.
Ravi and Advait. And
Yeah, here too. Yeah, I'd like to try it out just to see if I like it.
okay, so tell us, Vishal, like how can these people enter? How can these people start?
Sure. In 2018, I did my first entrepreneurial journey. I want to like started out and did something in the fashion industry, and I failed literally in that year itself. The learning that I had during that time was I was not playing by my strength, and I did not understand cash flows very well at that time. So what I would say, anyone who wants to try out first on freelancing or doing consulting, go back, look at your track record till now, and analyze where are your strengths and what kind of problems that you have solved. Number one, make a list of it. Create a sheet and make a list of all the kind of problems that you have solved. Try to understand like who would need this kind of solution altogether, right? So then you can start looking out and either reach out to your first person connect network, like first set of network that you have either on LinkedIn, or you can create a profile on Upwork, and then start looking out for data projects specifically in your area which you are strength on. So the fastest way to do is to know the kind of problems that you have solved and see whom you can solve this problem for, and reach out to them, and then start reaching out and start working for them, and then just consult with them like, hey, I've solved this problem before. Are you facing this internally? Do you want to have a conversation like how we solve this? And would you like to take it further altogether, right? So would you like to do it for your company? Like a simple conversation, and then you would start getting interest, people who are actually facing this problem, and then you can convert this into a consulting assignment. What again thing I would also say is, don't directly leave your job just to do consulting right now. I would say go a little extra. Try to do it on the weekends, try to do it apart from 9 to 5, and try to do it after 5 p.m. and try to solve this part during that time, because it will take a certain time for you to get better and get your first few initial plans altogether. So always have that layer of security so that your mind is not on survival and your mind is on solving the problem altogether. So these are the two things that I would say, if you're starting out and you want to try it out, do it altogether. So, yeah. And this is how you can do it.
Any questions on this?
There should be.
Yeah.
Where will we get these kind of problems to solve? If we want to solve a simple ML problem, we get it from Kaggle, we get a lot of data.
Yeah.
We can frame some problems like how what can we predict or something like that. But how we will reduce the cost or how much revenue we can increase using this data? Like, can we get it from those open source data only, or is there any other resource also where we can try our hands on?
The best resource is the projects that you have already worked on. So what I'm trying to let me reiterate. If you have no experience, then don't do it. Number one, right? So this is for only get an internship, get a job, and get some experience altogether. I would not recommend you to directly go out doing consulting as a fresher. Don't do that. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you have experience, you're in this field for a few years, and you have solved certain problems, yeah, hey, the biggest thing that you can do is go back, do this exercise today, make a list of all the problems that you have solved, and you may not have the revenue impact figures, but you know what problem that you have solved. Write down for the company that you have solved and which industry that they belong to. Write down the 10 competitors of that company and reach out to them, because the companies who are like just competitors, they would also going to have that same problem, right? Don't break any legal thing, but all I'm trying to say is that the competitors are the best starting ground to do it, right? तो अगर मैकडॉनल्ड्स की प्रॉब्लम है तो बर्गर किंग की भी वही प्रॉब्लम होगी, राइट? अगर जोमैटो की प्रॉब्लम है तो स्विगी की भी वही प्रॉब्लम होगी, अगर उबर की प्रॉब्लम है तो ओला की भी वही प्रॉब्लम होगी. सो द पॉइंट दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक इज कि जो आपकी प्रॉब्लम आपने सॉल्व करी है, add a new column to it and say कि किस कस्टमर, किस क्लाइंट के लिए या तो किस कंपनी के लिए सॉल्व करी थी, वो किस तरीके की कंपनी थी, उसके 10 कॉम्पिटिटर निकाल लो और उनसे जाके बात करो. So that's the fastest way to go from problem to revenue altogether. Does that answer your question, Kupe?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. All right.
I think that's a great answer. I think it works. So like according to me, this is the right answer. Like reach out to competitors.
Reach out to competitors, right? You know, there's a funny story. So हम लोग जब when we talk to customers and like prospects, तो मैं what I have is internally I keep a track on what they clicked on it, right? So if I have 4 or 5 links in the email, I'm able to track like what they clicked on it. You know, मैंने एक बंदे को भेजा था कि उसमें 5-6 लिंक थे, मुझे सारे लिंक छोड़कर पता है कौन सा किया, कॉम्पिटिटर केस स्टडी. तो ही ओनली वाज इंटरेस्टेड इन नोइंग कि मेरे कॉम्पिटिटर ने क्या किया. That's all he was about doing. So that's human emotion. That's the right brain.
Yeah.
That's the right brain working. कि यार इसने क्या किया, इसने कैसे solve किया. So it's a game of left brain and the right brain. So you would need to understand that emotion and play with it. Yeah.
I think FOMO works everywhere. Okay. I have one question. What do you think sells? Like when you are, let's say you are open to consulting, maybe in a freelance capacity, what sells? Like what would make a client choose you? Is it the pedigree? Is it your pricing? Is it your people skills? Like what do you think sells? Or is it a pretty PPT?
The number one thing that we have seen working in again is show me that you know me, right? आप जानते हो कि मेरी प्रॉब्लम क्या है. नंबर 1, you understand me well कि मेरी प्रॉब्लम क्या है. नंबर 2, आपने वो प्रॉब्लम पहले सॉल्व करी हुई. I don't want to give a money to someone. I'm not going to bank on like कोई राह चलते इंसान को पकड़कर मैं नहीं कर सकता. They don't know you. Let's be honest, right? You're talking to them for the first time. What are the trust indicators that it is? In a simple sense, the answer is on trust. So how do you develop that trust? Number 1, show that you know that problem in and out. Number 1. Number 2, show that you have solved this problem. Give a proof that you have solved this problem. Third, show that you have a process to solve this problem. If you are, and you would get better and better. So the fourth is there are testimonials. The fifth is your pricing is not that very high, and it's like the value is 5x or 10x on it. So I can go on as and when you go deeper, you will have all these parameters that do it. But the number one thing is trust. It's always a trust. Do I trust this person to solve this problem? And that can only come on whether you understand that person, number 1, whatever their role is, So if you're talking to a CXO, their problems will be different. If you're talking to a data manager, their problems will be different. If you're talking to a marketing manager, their problem was again be a different, right? So understand which persona that you're talking to, show that you have show that you have solved this problem before, show that you have a process to solve this problem and have got results before that. So this is what it works. And we ask our clients like why you selected us, and the number one reason that they say, I can clearly see that you have a process to solve this, right? So, and that is a simple reason. I could see like 80 plus companies already trust you, so I know it works, right? So when they have this sort of proof, they are like, okay, I can bank upon it. That's right. Because whose job will they lose if they hire you and then you don't deliver, right? So it's their job that get lost. So that is what you are going against. Yeah.
But this looks like
Yes, Sadam.
you're saying that you have to know what their problem is, and then you might have
Yes.
already solved it and all, right? So
Yes.
to start with, probably you have to start somewhere, right? For the first company, what do you do? If you have, so this way, if you have worked on a particular domain, you will just stick to that particular domain only, right?
No, the good part of data and analytics is it's cross domain, number one. Number two, if you're too early in your career, I would say there is something called like try to do this internally. Okay. What I used to do is how many people in the company know me, right? So I used to ask myself this thing, right? So the more people that you know, the more people you interact with, the more problems you come to know. Number two. And then you bring your expertise of data, how you solve it. Number three. If you're too early in your career, your best bet is on doing more work and picking up more work internally in the company. You have to give a certain time so that you are able to show results. And if you see the success of you getting project number 2 depends on success of you delivering the project number 1. And it's always the case, right? So you getting the project number 3 is dependent on you solving the project number 2. You solving the project, you getting project number 4 is you solving the project number 3, right? So you will always, if the first thing, if you're too early, do it in your company, show the results over there, solve that, get another project. And that's how you would grow into your career altogether. And Steve Jobs said it very rightly, you're as good as your last product or your last project. So that's the philosophy around the same. So you will get the project number 2 when you solve the project number 1. That's it altogether.
And it compounds, right?
And it compounds. Because once people develop that trust, they would just tell you, can you solve this problem also? Can you solve this problem also? Can you do it? Then they would come to you and do it. And it took us 2 years to reach that position where people say, oh, can you solve this problem also with that, right? So it takes time. It won't be that easy to do it in this part, and specifically in data, because right from inception to coding to deploying to doing and seeing an impact takes about 3, 4, 5 months altogether, right? So that is a timeline that you're talking about, just to see like your outcomes coming in all to the same. So yeah. Does that answer your question, Sudha?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think this fundamental thing that works everywhere.
Yes.
Whether you are starting a business, like whatever you're doing to grow in that particular thing, like this thing is always valid. You do
Yes.
whatever you're doing the best you can. The next thing will come easier.
Yes.
Then you do that the best you can. The next thing will come even easier, and so on.
Yes. So the formula is you will get project number 2 once you solve project number 1. You get project number 3 when you solve project number 2. So you have to solve the current project to move to the next one altogether. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The questions, anyone? We are already 30 minutes over time. We expected this to finish in less than an hour. Okay, let's wait for 10, 20 seconds.
All right.
How was the session, guys? Did it help you in any way? Was it useful?
Yeah, it was a good session because I find my resume has most of the things I have done, but impact wise, I'm finding it hard to show. And most of the times I show impact in like percentage of RAC increased or something like that. AOC, ROC increased, but nowadays I see that feedback that we
Yeah.
need to show dollar impact. So
Yeah, especially at your stage, like at a senior stage, you have to be like business oriented. The model performance metrics, like anyone, like everyone is doing that, right? Because even a fresher will write that in the resume that they improved this model from 80% to 90% accuracy. But like how do you stand out? I think the business point of view is very important.
this was very helpful in that understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kuber, Sudha, Advait, Ravi. Thank you for the feedback.
Cool. I think that's it then. Thanks a lot, Vishal, for taking the time.
Thank you, Ashit.
If anyone has any other feedback, let me know in the community. I'll forward it to Vishal.
Thank you, Ashit. Thank you, everyone, for taking our time on Sunday. I'm going to send the link to Ashit, and then he will share the same with you. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.